My child, as you continue with this, something even more important becomes clear, not just about the message, but about how your mind reacted to it, because at the beginning, the reaction was instant, driven by excitement and urgency, and that is exactly how such messages are designed to work. They don't give you time to think, they create a situation where you feel like you must act quickly, especially when something valuable like money is involved, because your brain naturally pays more attention to reward, and when that reward is combined with a time limit, it creates pressure, making you feel like you might lose something if you don't act immediately, and that is how your attention gets pulled in. Now pause again and think logically. If something as big as $89 million was truly meant for you, would it come through a sudden message with a countdown, or would it come through clear, verified, and official communication? Because real opportunities, especially something this serious, do not rely on urgency or emotional pressure. They come with proper details, confirmation, and time to understand what is happening, and once you think about it this way, the entire situation becomes much clearer, because you realize that nothing in your real life supports what the message is claiming. Your mind might still hold on to a small curiosity, that what-if feeling, but it is important to understand that curiosity alone is not proof, it is just a reaction, and when you observe it instead of following it, it starts to fade, because you are no longer feeding it with attention, and this is where your control becomes strong, because you are not reacting automatically, you are choosing how to respond. My child, as you continue with this, something even more important becomes clear, not just about the message, but about how your mind reacted to it, because at the beginning, the reaction was instant, driven by excitement and urgency, and that is exactly how such messages are designed to work. They don't give you time to think, they create a situation where you feel like you must act quickly, especially when something valuable like money is involved, because your brain naturally pays more attention to reward, and when that reward is combined with a time limit, it creates pressure, making you feel like you might lose something if you don't act immediately, and that is how your attention gets pulled in. Now pause again and think logically. If something as big as $89 million was truly meant for you, would it come through a sudden message with a countdown, or would it come through clear, verified, and official communication? Because real opportunities, especially something this serious, do not rely on urgency or emotional pressure, they come with proper details, confirmation, and time to understand what is happening, and once you think about it this way, the entire situation becomes much clearer, because you realize that nothing in your real life supports what the message is claiming. Your mind might still hold on to a small curiosity, that what-if feeling, but it is important to understand that curiosity alone is not proof, it is just a reaction, and when you observe it instead of following it, it starts to fade, because you are no longer feeding it with attention, and this is where your control becomes strong, because you are not reacting automatically, you are choosing how to respond. Complete this video, I beg you. Elone Musk says, now bring your focus back to your surroundings again. Everything is still normal, nothing has changed, there is no real sign of any money arriving, and this simple observation grounds you in reality, because reality is always consistent. It does not depend on sudden or emotional messages, and when you stay connected to that reality, your thoughts become stable again, because you are no longer chasing something uncertain. At this stage, you are not just calm, you are aware, and that awareness is what protects you, because once you understand how these messages work, you can recognize them instantly in the future. You can see the pattern: big promise, strong name, urgent deadline, and instead of reacting, you pause automatically, and that pause is what keeps you in control. In the end, what you gain from this is not just clarity about this message, but a deeper understanding of how your mind works, how it reacts to excitement and urgency, and how you can guide it back to logic and awareness, and this understanding becomes your strength, because it allows you to stay calm and make decisions based on what is real, not on what is suggested, and once you have that ability, no message like this can easily influence you again. Everything becomes even clearer and more stable in your mind, because now you are not just understanding the message, you are fully seeing through it, and that clarity changes how you feel completely, because what once seemed exciting or urgent now feels simple and obvious, and this is important because it shows you how quickly perception can change when you move from reaction to awareness. And once you are aware, the same message that once felt powerful no longer has any control over you. If you think about it carefully, nothing about your real situation ever changed from the beginning to now. Your surroundings stayed the same, your life continued exactly as it was, and there was never any actual confirmation of what the message claimed. And this realization is what removes the illusion completely, because it shows you that the entire experience existed only in your thoughts, not in reality. And once you understand that, your mind naturally stops reacting, because there is nothing real to respond to. At this point, your thinking becomes more grounded, because you are no longer influenced by big promises or urgent deadlines. You are focusing on what is real and what can be verified, and this is a very important shift, because it helps you make better decisions, not just in situations like this, but in life in general, because you are no longer reacting based on emotions alone. You are using logic and awareness to guide your response. You also begin to understand how easily attention can be controlled by the way something is presented, because the message used a powerful combination, a large reward, a famous name like Elon Musk, and a strict time limit, and that combination created a strong pull on your attention. But now that you see the pattern, it no longer feels special, it feels predictable, and once something becomes predictable, it loses its effect, because you are no longer experiencing it blindly, you are recognizing it for what it is. Now your mind is calm and steady, because it is no longer trying to chase an uncertain idea. It is focused on what is actually happening, and this calmness is what clarity feels like, a state where your thoughts are not being pushed in different directions, but are stable and under your control, and this is where your real strength lies, not in avoiding such situations, but in understanding them and responding correctly. At this stage, you are fully in control of your attention, your thoughts, and your reaction, because you have taken the time to pause, observe, and think, and that is what separates awareness from reaction, because reaction happens instantly, without thinking, while awareness gives you the space to understand before acting, and that space is what protects you from making unnecessary decisions. In the end, everything comes down to a simple realization that not everything that looks like an opportunity is real, not everything that feels urgent is important, and not everything that promises something big deserves your attention, and once you carry this understanding forward, you naturally remain calm, aware, and in control, no matter what kind of message or situation appears in front of you, because you know how to stay grounded in reality, and that is what keeps your thinking clear and your decisions strong. You believe. Type Amin. If you ignore this message, then as you reach this final stage, everything becomes completely clear and settled inside your mind, because now there is no excitement, no urgency, and no confusion left from that message, only understanding, and that understanding shows you something very simple yet very powerful, that nothing in your real life was ever connected to it, nothing changed, nothing arrived, and nothing was about to disappear in 10 minutes, and the entire experience existed only for a brief moment inside your thoughts, created by the way the message was written, and once you slowed down and looked at it calmly, that effect disappeared completely. Now you can clearly see how your mind moved step by step. At first there was a quick reaction, driven by the idea of a big reward and the pressure of losing it. Then there was curiosity and a slight pull to check further, but as you continued to think logically, those feelings started to fade, because they were not supported by anything real, and this is a very important realization, because it shows you that not every thought or feeling needs to control your actions, especially when it is triggered by something unclear or unverified, and once you understand this, you naturally stop reacting instantly and start observing your thoughts instead. At this point, your focus is fully back on reality, where everything is normal, stable, and under your control, and this is where true clarity exists, because reality does not depend on sudden promises or emotional triggers, it remains consistent, and when you stay connected to that consistency, your mind also becomes stable, because you are no longer chasing something uncertain. You are simply grounded in what is actually happening. You also understand now that the power of such messages comes from how they capture your attention, but once you take your attention back, they lose all their influence, and this is a very important lesson, because it shows you that your attention is something valuable, and not everything deserves it, and when you choose where to focus, you decide what affects you and what doesn't. At this stage, you are not just calm, you are aware, and that awareness is what protects you, because once you recognize the pattern, big promise, strong name like Elon Musk, an urgent deadline, you can identify it instantly in the future, and instead of reacting, you will pause automatically, and that pause is what keeps you in control. In the end, this leads to a simple truth, that not everything that sounds exciting is real, not everything that feels urgent is true, and your decisions should always be based on what you can actually verify, not on what tries to create a quick reaction, and once you understand this fully, you naturally remain calm, stable, and in control, no matter what kind of message appears in front of you. Because you know how to separate what is real from what is suggested, and that ability is your real strength. You believe, then type the mean. My beloved child, wait, before you react, just slow down for a moment and really take in what you just read, because a message like this is designed to hit you instantly, to create excitement, curiosity, and urgency all at once, especially when it says, your money has finally arrived, and mentions a huge number like $89 million, because that kind of amount immediately grabs your attention. It creates a spark in your mind, a sudden thought that something extraordinary might be happening, and then, when a name like Elon Musk is added, it amplifies that feeling even more, because now it is not just about money, it is connected to someone powerful, someone well-known, someone associated with success and wealth, and that combination is what makes the message feel important, even though nothing in your actual surroundings has changed. Think about your first reaction, because that is where everything begins. The moment you saw that number, your mind paused, it focused, it became alert, because the idea of receiving such a large amount of money is naturally exciting. It taps into your desires, your dreams, your imagination, and for a brief moment, it feels like something could actually be real, like this could be an opportunity, something that might change your life. And that is exactly what the message is designed to do. It creates a feeling before you have time to question it. It makes you react emotionally before you think logically. Then comes the next part: open this within 10 minutes before it's gone, and this is where urgency is introduced, because now it is not just about the opportunity, it is about losing it, and when something feels like it could disappear quickly, your brain shifts into a different mode. It stops analyzing and starts reacting, because it feels like time is limited, and that is how the message pushes you further. It removes your ability to pause, it creates pressure so you act quickly, without verifying, without thinking, without questioning. God, I begging you still here, but now, as you continue reading and allow yourself to slow down, something begins to change. Your thoughts are no longer moving at the same speed, the excitement starts to settle, and you begin to observe instead of react, and that shift is the most important part of this entire experience, because the moment you stop reacting and start observing, you gain control over your thinking. And once you have that control, the entire effect of the message begins to fade. Ask yourself something simple, something real. What has actually changed in your life right now? Not what the message is suggesting, but what you can actually see, hear, or verify. And when you look honestly, the answer becomes clear. Nothing has changed. There is no official notification, no verified source, no real confirmation. Your surroundings are exactly the same as they were before you read those words. And this realization is powerful, because it shows you that the feeling you had was not based on reality, it was created by the message itself. Your mind may still hold on to a small possibility, a small what if, because that is how the brain works. It considers possibilities, especially when something sounds positive or rewarding. But this is where awareness becomes important, because instead of following that thought, you can question it. You can ask whether there is any real evidence supporting it, and when you realize there is none, the thought begins to lose its strength, because it is no longer being treated as truth. You believe type Amin. You still hear now. Look at how the message was structured, because understanding the structure helps you see through it completely. First it gives you something big, something desirable, money, success, a life-changing opportunity. Then it adds a powerful name like Elon Musk to make it feel believable, and finally it introduces urgency to make you act quickly, and this combination is not random. It is designed to influence your attention, your emotions, and your reaction, but once you recognize this pattern, it loses its effect, because you are no longer experiencing it blindly, you are understanding it clearly. Real opportunities in life do not come like this. They do not appear suddenly without context, they do not disappear within minutes, and they do not rely on pressure to force you into action. They are clear, they are verifiable, they give you time to understand and respond, and most importantly, they are connected to something real in your life, not something that appears out of nowhere and demands immediate attention. Now, bring your focus back to your present moment again. Notice your surroundings, notice the calmness, the absence of anything urgent or unusual, and this observation grounds you in reality, because reality is always consistent. It does not depend on sudden emotional triggers, it remains steady, and when you stay connected to that steadiness, your thoughts also become steady. Because you are no longer chasing something uncertain, you are simply observing what is actually there. At this stage, your attention has shifted completely. You are no longer focused on the excitement or urgency created by the message, you are focused on understanding it, and this shift removes its power, because attention is what gives something importance. And when you stop giving attention to something unclear or unverified, it naturally loses its influence over you. You also begin to understand something deeper about yourself, that your mind reacts quickly to both fear and reward, and this message used reward, the idea of money, to capture your attention, but just like fear, reward can also be misleading when it is not supported by reality, and learning to recognize this is what makes your thinking stronger, because you are no longer influenced by every thought or feeling. You are choosing which ones to follow. As everything settles, the message becomes just what it is, a set of words designed to create a reaction, and what remains instead is your awareness, your ability to stay calm, your ability to think clearly, and your ability to remain in control, and these are far more valuable than anything the message tried to offer, because they stay with you, they become part of how you respond to life. And in the end, this leads you to a simple but powerful truth, that not everything that sounds exciting is real, not everything that feels urgent is true, and not everything that promises something big deserves your reaction, and once you understand this fully, you naturally remain calm, stable, and in control, no matter what kind of message appears in front of you, because you know how to separate what is real from what is suggested. And that is your real strength, the ability to think clearly. Even when something tries to make you react quickly. My beloved child.